Well, welcome, welcome, welcome to the Humanists of Greater Portland. We've got a great meeting this morning. What is humanism? Well, just simply, humanism is a philosophy informed by science, inspired by art, and motivated by compassion. Humanists strive to lead meaningful and ethical lives. We use reason and empathy to guide our decisions and actions. We live meaningful lives because we honor the fact that this is the only life of which we are certain. As humanists, we affirm the dignity and worth of all people. We do this not only to acknowledge all that humans have accomplished in the arts, the sciences, and humanities, but also simply for the possibility for peace and well-being when people interact with respect for one another. Hank Robb will be our reader this morning. Hank, could you come in?
So I'm going to open with the first stanza of a poem by William Butler Yeats titled The Second Coming, and then I'm going to read what I take as a response from a historian named Timothy Snyder from a book called On Freedom. So we begin by the poem from Yeats, the first stanza of The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The sinner cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-thin tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. And so here is the section from Timothy Snyder's book titled On Freedom. How does freedom figure in our lives? The connections between freedom as a principle and freedom as a practice are the 5 forms of freedom. The forms create a world where people act on the basis of values. Those are not rules or orders. They are the logical, moral, and political links between common action and the formation of free individuals. The forms resolve 2 apparent conundrums. A free person is an individual, but no one becomes an individual alone. Freedom is felt in one lifetime, but it must be the work of generations. The 5 forms are sovereignty, or the learned capacity to make choices, unpredictability, the power to adapt physical regularities to personal purposes, mobility, the capacity to move through space and time following values, factuality, the grip on the world that allows us to change it, and solidarity, the recognition that freedom is for everyone. The labor of freedom begins after the labor of a mother. A baby has the potential to evaluate the world and change it, and it depends on the requisite capabilities, which the support of and in the company of others. This is sovereignty. Coming of age, a young human being learns to see the world as it is and to imagine how it might be. A sovereign person mixes chosen virtues with the world outside to make something new. Thus, unpredictability is the second form of freedom. Our bodies need places to go. We cannot, as young people, create for ourselves the conditions that will allow us to be sovereign and unpredictable. But once those conditions have been created, we rebel against the very institutions that made them possible and go our own way. And this mobility, the third form of freedom, is to be encouraged. We are free to do only the things we know how to do and free to go only to places where we can go. What we don't know can hurt us, and what we do know empowers us. Freedom's fourth form is factuality. No individual achieves freedom alone. Practically and ethically, freedom for you means freedom for me. This recognition is solidarity, the final form of freedom. The solution to the problem of freedom is not, as some on the right think, to mock or abandon government. The solution is not, as some on the left think, to ignore or cast away the rhetoric of freedom. Freedom justifies government. The forms of freedom show us how.
Oh, Hank, thank you so much. That was a very timely reading and much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. Our topic today, 99 Girlfriends, Making an Impact Through Collective Giving and Collaborative Learning, is an example of 3 of these humanist commitments. Altruism, the selfless concern for the welfare of other living beings. Responsibility, being accountable for the consequences of our actions. And service, putting value into action that positively affects our community. I'm very honored to introduce our 2 speakers this morning, both members of 99 Girlfriends. And Tammy Wilhoite enjoys connecting people with things that inspire them and encourages them to give their gifts. She is in her 9th year with 99 Girlfriends. Tammy has professional experience in nonprofit management, landscape design, and community and customer service. Tammy enjoys hiking, yoga, and time with her husband and adult children. Lori Rux is also here today. Lori grew up in rural Oregon and developed an early interest in volunteering and contributing to her community. She became an electrical engineer and worked in the public sector for 30 years. Lori joined 99 Girlfriends in 2018 and got involved in the membership committee soon after. She is currently the co-chair of 99 Girlfriends. And Lori lives in Portland and enjoys sharing her home and spending time outdoors and with her miniature pinscher, Axel. But thank you, ladies, for being here today, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Well, as Helen said, I'm Tammy Wilhoite.
And I'm Lori Rux.
And we'd like to thank you for inviting us here today to share about the magic of 99 Girlfriends.
So we also really wanted to especially thank our member of 99 Girlfriends, Beth Parmenter. She connected our organizations, and so we're very grateful. It wouldn't have happened without you.
And Joyce, Helen, and David on your end. Collaboration, which you'll hear frequently. So as a bit of grounding, we'd just like to call out that we recognize that none of what we do as an organization matters without the human connection aspect. People join us for many different reasons, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but none of it would matter if we didn't care about each other as humans. So 99 Girlfriends. Our mission is to build a welcoming community of diverse women who give collectively and learn collaboratively to become more informed and engaged philanthropists. We believe that only by embracing equity and inclusion can we truly achieve our mission. So how did we get here? Once upon a time, it was the spring of 2015, 2 women met at a gathering and they got into a debate about which city, Portland, Oregon, or Austin, Texas, was more philanthropic. Deborah was from Austin and Eileen was from Portland. And Deborah declared that Austin was definitely more philanthropic because they had managed to find 100 women to put $1,000 each in a pot and give a $100,000 grant to a nonprofit in the community. And she believed that that proved that they were more philanthropic. They called it a giving circle. Eileen declared that Portland was more philanthropic and that they could do that. They just hadn't done it yet. So at that party, they agreed let's make it happen in Portland. So they pulled some other friends into the kitchen, and by the time they left at the end of the evening, they had agreed that they were going to try to make this happen in Portland. And they had about 12 women that had signed on there at the party. And they even came up with a name. They decided they were going to call it 99 Girlfriends. And that was because if I got 99 of my girlfriends to all give money and I gave money, we'd have 100 people giving $1,000 and we could give a $100,000 grant. And people were pumped and they all went out and talked to their girlfriends.
So in 2016, 99 Girlfriends was officially founded. And the goal of that first year was to get 30 women who could contribute $1,000 for a $30,000 grant. And the average grant amount in Portland was $10,000. So a $30,000 grant would be a big deal. So yeah, the girlfriends started recruiting their friends and their family and their colleagues in that first year with that goal of getting 30 women, but they didn't get 30 women. They got 117 women. Mm-hmm. So they were able to give a $117,000 grant. The first recipient of that grant was PDX Bridge Project. It's a nonprofit, a very innovative nonprofit that bridges young people coming out of foster care, homelessness, and the juvenile justice system to get them through high school and community college. The rest of the money, beyond the $100,000 went to some runners-up. So fast forward 9 years to now, to the present, and with the involvement over 1,000 women, members of 99 Girlfriends, we have granted over $3.3 million to more than 70 regional nonprofits. We have a long list of impact partners. I won't read them all, but they include Urban Gleaners, Red Lodge Transition Services, CARES Northwest, Ecology in the Classroom, Oregon Tradeswomen, Bravo Youth Orchestra, and many others. In 2024, we had 335 members, and so we granted $300,000. We gave 4 $65,000 awards. They went to Financial Ability for Women. Also, the Experience Life Science Outdoors for young people of color, Path Home, Solving Homeless Issues for Families, and Working Theory Farm, a group of people young people who learn how to grow agricultural products, and then they're given to communities in need. So the remaining 40,000 went to the runners-up.
So I get to share an example of a nonprofit that we funded that continues to give back. There was this shelter for Portland homeless families. It was called Portland Homeless Family Solutions. They were trying to prove that it was easier to prevent people from becoming homeless, and there was less trauma involved, and it was less expensive than trying to rehome people that had been on the streets. But they needed money to do a pilot project so that they could prove that. They could get the data, they could go to the county, they could do whatever they needed to do to see if they could change the way that the funding worked. Because the funding wasn't in prevention. It was in, once you became homeless, then the funding went to trying to help you eventually, when your number came up on the list, to do something. But by then, so much trauma has been experienced, it doesn't make sense. And they knew this. They'd worked in this field and they knew. We were really excited about this project, and we funded $100,000, and they went and they did the work. And what they did was, if a family got an eviction notice, they could bring it to Portland Homeless Family Solutions, and they would pay their rent up to date, help them with their utilities, and they would get a caseworker. And the caseworker would help them learn how to budget better. They would help them figure out what went wrong to get you into this situation. And as you all probably know, it's typically like somebody got sick for a week and couldn't go to work, and that's all it took. So they helped them figure out, how do we avoid this in the future? They also helped with childcare. They helped with figuring out how to use your money at the grocery store to spend less on food but eat more healthy. All kinds of wraparound services that they got at the time indefinitely. And what they found was, at the time, it cost about $1,500 to keep a family in their home. But we were letting them go out on the streets and get all kinds of trauma, which cost a lot more to deal with. And then it would cost at the time was like, I think it was $15,000 at the time to get them rehomed. And it could be years. So they would be couch surfing. They would be sleeping in their cars. $1,500 to keep them from becoming homeless. $15,000 to get them back into housing. Yeah, thanks for asking that. Well, now it's about with housing and increased costs and all. And this has been, I think that was maybe in our second or third year that we funded them. So it's been 7 or 8 years. And now it still only costs $3,000 to keep a family from becoming homeless. And it costs more like $20,000 to get them back into housing. And again, the trauma, I'm sure, is even worse now than it was then. So we were really thrilled to fund that and to help try to prevent all that trauma. And they did it. They did the pilot project. They gathered the data. They shared it with Multnomah County, and Multnomah County changed the way they funded homelessness. They put more money into prevention. As a result, that organization's work. They're now called Path Home. We have funded them since. They continue to do great work. And yeah, so that's one that we're really proud of. There are many, many, believe me, that we're really proud of. But that's a particular one that we wanted to draw your attention to because it's an example of how our work with committed nonprofits can make a continuing difference. They know what they're doing, and we can help get them the money to do it. And partnering together, we help make change.
That is a great example.
Yeah.
So since that early debate, I like to think of it as an energetic discussion in the kitchen about who's more philanthropic. It's been a really exciting journey, and we've been giving, and we've been learning, and we have been evolving. So one of the things that we've changed recently was the funding model. As Tammy mentioned, the Austin organization and us in our early days required a $1,000 contribution in order to be a member. Well, there are a lot of women that want to make a difference, but they're not able to contribute $1,000. So we made a change, and we now offer 5 annual membership levels from $300 to $2,500. So 2024 was the first year we made this change. And there was a little bit of concern about what that was going to mean to the amount of money that we would collect and what kind of impactful awards we would be able to give. But what we found was that we had almost 4 times as many new members joining when we had options for contributing. We also had a higher retention rate of existing members, and we had the highest number of returning members who came back after having lapsed their membership. And so women joined at every level according to their ability to pay and their the meaningfulness of the amount that they wanted to give and could give. So at the end of our drive, the numbers had increased, and the average contribution was actually higher than it had been when we had $1,000 for everybody. So we're very pleased with that result. We continue to make significant, impactful gifts together, more than we could do separately. This is that collective giving, how you leverage the contributions, and you can really do more. But we also are very proud of the fact that we now have more women who can be included and who can be involved in what we're doing. So our big grants have typically ranged from $50,000 to $100,000 per impact partner, depending on that year's pool of money. And our runner-up awards average about $10,000 to $15,000. We fund equally in 4 focus areas, and we select nonprofits whose work is aligned with our vision of a more equitable future for all, and our values of strength and diversity, collective action, and community impact. Our 4 focus areas are child and youth educational equity, environmental equity and sustainability, housing and home stability, and women's economic empowerment.
And you're probably wondering how we do it. So I get to talk about that a little bit, how we do the grant making. So each year we solicit letters of interest from the nonprofit community. And then we have a room full of volunteers from our members that read through all of those letters and find there are those 4 different areas Lori talked about. They find 10 organizations for each of those 4 areas that seem to be the most aligned with our values, our mission, and all of that. And then those 80 organizations are invited to submit a full application. And then while they are doing that, we are training girlfriends that are going to be on the review teams in implicit bias, in how to collaborate and come to consensus about something, about equity and what that truly means, and about trust-based philanthropy, which is a certain way of giving your dollars that gives the freedom to the nonprofits who are the experts in their field and know how they need to spend the money. So we teach them about all of that. And then once the applications are received, they apply all of that they've learned to the applications. And working together, they narrow it down to 2 finalists in each of those 4 areas. So then all the girlfriends go to each other's houses and watch videos that the nonprofits have submitted to share more about themselves. And then we all vote. We have a secret voting online, and it's really secure, and we all vote. And one of the things that we've changed from the beginning was, in the beginning, we gave as many $100,000 awards as we could, but the people that didn't win didn't get anything. So now we make sure that the people who get the most votes get the bigger dollar amount, and the people who get less votes still get a really nice size grant of $10,000 or $15,000. So we also learned that from trust-based philanthropy. We are a learning organization. We're always learning. Every year we try to improve what we're doing. We have listening sessions with the applicants, with the award winners, with the runners-up. What could we do differently? What could we do better? What should we keep? And we have great partners in the community that are honest with us because they know that we really care about what they have to say. So in the end, I think I said we select based on the voting, and then they get the money at a big award celebration that we have where we really fet them. Everybody gets flowers and they get to talk, and we make them feel like $1 million because they're doing really, really important work in the community. And they're often underpaid, it's overlooked. So we really try to make it a special evening for them. And then we also celebrate that we did this together, working collectively, and everybody's volunteering their time. None of us get paid. We're doing this because we all believe that we can help make the Portland area a better place by helping each other and working together. So we give those funds at the award celebration, and then we go and we rest a little bit because we're going to get ready to do it all again the next year.
Well, speaking of the award celebration, the way I got into 99 Girlfriends was through a friend of mine in a book club. She was a member already, and she told me about 99 Girlfriends and was wanting to recruit me. So she invited me to an award celebration. And I went, and the Bravo Youth Orchestra was playing. And so it was just like a festive atmosphere, and the energy was great, and the nonprofits felt supported and appreciated. And there was just all these women, and I had been an engineer in a very wonderful, fantastic, male-dominated environment. And just to be around all these women who were doing all of the technical work and the catering, and just they did everything. But seeing those earnest little musicians playing music for us and doing an amazing job, oh my gosh, it just plucked my heartstrings. And I have been absolutely hooked ever since then. And it's just that experience of helping and just supporting somebody who's doing great work. It just is extremely rewarding in and of itself. So, but just in terms of our evolution, having more women at the table, this is a personal passion of mine, making us accessible to more women. So getting more women through this newly structured contributions levels, and then also having these unrestricted funds for the nonprofits where we rely and we respect their expertise, and we don't hover over them and make them report to us. And we have confidence because we've vetted them well, but we have confidence in what they're doing and their expertise, and we trust them. And we have been very pleased with the results. So this is a great example of the democratization of philanthropy, where more people at different levels can contribute, and the money is going to organizations, particularly if they're minority owned, where we don't tell them what they need to do. They tell us what needs to be done. It's just a fantastic model. And we don't just make grants. We also learn together. We learn about the community needs, the community strengths. We learn about philanthropy, and we learn a lot about ourselves and our biases and what we love, what our passions are. So as part of this learning pillar of our organization, we pose a learning question every year, and that helps us plan small group gatherings and forums and the research that we do. In past years, we have learned about a number of things, including social change, what philanthropy is and how we fit in, how philanthropy can influence policy, like the example with the homeless solutions, how to embed racial equity in everything we do, and a whole bunch of other topics. For 2025, our learning question is, in what ways can philanthropy play a role in addressing housing and home stability in our region?
And for all you gentlemen in the room, you're probably wondering, why do only the women get to do this? Because I want to, and it sounds really fun. This women's collective giving movement started because women didn't used to be welcomed at the philanthropic table, and they didn't have the resources to be there. So men were the philanthropists, and they did things in their way. And the women's collective giving movement was an answer to that. It was, okay, we've got some resources. Let's figure out how we can do this, but we're going to do it our way. And we're not going to invite the gentleman right now because that's going to change the power dynamic. We're going to figure out how we want to do this, and we're going to figure out if it works. And the reality is it really works. Giving circles are widespread and growing. There are, over the past several years, 4,000 collective giving circles have been identified in the US, involving 400,000 people and giving more than $3 billion. Some of them are men's collective giving groups. They expect this to double over the next 5 years. Women make up 70% of giving circles. They're an average of 115 members. Note, we started with 170. I don't know how many Austin started with, but
smaller number, I would imagine.
We did get over 500 in 2020 before COVID was announced. And like everyone else that's a volunteer organization, we did experience some loss from that. But we're on the rebound because women are drawn to leveraging their personal dollars by working together for greater impact, making a difference in the region, getting to know more about the local nonprofits so they can figure out, like, maybe I want to go work for a particular nonprofit after I've been with 99 Girlfriends, or maybe I want to do both. And connecting with other women who care, that community part that we talked about, just being human together and enjoying working on something collaboratively.
So here are a few more fun facts about 99 Girlfriends. We are a charitable organization. Donations are tax deductible. We fund nonprofits serving Clackamas, Clark, Multnomah, and Washington counties. We're an all-volunteer organization. That's right, no paid staff, never has been. Members have an opportunity to participate at any level they choose. It's okay if you just contribute and vote, or if you want to be on a team, or if you want to be in a leadership position. There are no barriers to a person wanting to, there are no requirements, requisite experiences. If you want to do it, we want you to do it. We host educational events and the annual event that Tammy mentioned. And so these are great opportunities to not only celebrate our good work together, but it's a socializing opportunity, sharing experiences in philanthropy and volunteering. Each member gets to vote on which nonprofit will receive the grant, regardless of what your contribution amount is. One woman, one vote. Membership contributions for 2025 are due by April 30th, and general donations that support our work are welcome at any time and in any amount. So I encourage you to check out our website. It's 99girlfriends.com. It's spelled out, no hyphens, no numbers, just letters. So we just want to be clear that we invite anyone who identifies as a woman to join our wonderful, collaborative collective. Everything you need to know to join or donate is on the card, and I put some out on the table out there. And so I think at this point, we just...
Well, I did want to mention that if men think this is awesome, you can also contribute to 99 Girlfriends as a friend of 99 Girlfriends.
Yes.
Or I had a friend who used to live across the street from me, and he loves 99 Girlfriends, and he always gets his wife to participate. And then he said, I need you to find a men's group like this because my wife loves it. I love the idea, and I want to participate. And I said, David, you're going to have to make one because I haven't learned of one. There are lots of ways that men do collective giving differently, not necessarily philanthropic. I mean, think about barn raisings and all kinds of things where men help each other that are also collective giving. But this kind of group, we're not aware of one that's happening that's similar to 99 Girlfriends. So I don't know if you're inspired. We are very open with sharing our model and with answering questions. We belong to a national organization called Philanos that strongly encourages all of us to share. What have we learned? What works? What doesn't work? So if there's a new giving circle, like they can call us at any time or email us and say, we need help with this. And we talk. Nobody hoards their information. It's a wonderful collaborative connection. That's called Philanos. PHILANOS. There's also a website online called grapevine.org, and it's a whole list of giving circles across the nation. You could put in something you're interested in or where you live, and it'll bring up different giving circles that are active in your area. A lot of times they're affinity groups, because people have something in common and they want to do a certain kind of work, like our affinity group is women in this region. My husband's part of a collective giving model, but it's for Black men, Black businessmen in a particular area, and they fund a certain way. So you could get on there and do a little, let your fingers do the walking, and probably.
I think the easiest thing, though, Tammy, would be for them to go to our website and push the donate button.
That's true, but we also could help you find something if you're interested. And I just wanted to share. Lori got to tell her story about joining 99 Girlfriends, so I wanted to share mine. I think we have time for that. Okay, so I had been running a regional nonprofit and had a sick parent and had kids at home, and had to make a decision about who needed to give. So obviously it was my job that had to go away. And then when everything settled down and I was able to look at going back to work, a friend asked me to write a grant to this great organization of women that she had heard of that was giving these really big amounts of money. And they were going to have this info session to learn more about how you could do that. So I went with her to this info session. I was so impressed with how organized they were, with the fact that it was all volunteer. They had everything organized. They answered questions. The room was full like this of people interested in applying. And I just thought, how did nobody invite me to this? I want to participate. And so I joined right away. And I let my friend know that I wouldn't be writing the grant because they actually weren't ready to write a grant to 99 Girlfriends, because 99 Girlfriends was great about saying, if you want money from us, make sure you've checked these boxes. And until you have, don't send your application in because it's wasting your time. And we still do that. We're very straightforward. Don't think I can get them to fund our golf club this time. If we've never funded golf clubs before, we're probably not going to do that. But I was just so impressed. And then because I wasn't working at the time, I marked all the boxes that I was interested in, that I had skills and was interested in volunteering with. And I got a bunch of phone calls and I started helping with things. And 9 years later, this is my job. And I still love it. I am the chair of 99 Girlfriends that runs like all the different committees and teams. And it's been some of the best leadership development and community building. And it's just been fantastic. It's a wonderful environment to volunteer in. You can come in and say, I want to help with this, but I don't know how to do it. I want to learn how to do it. And you can still participate. Or you can say, I'm really good at this and I want to come help. And we'll say, let's see how you do it and how we do it, because we have a particular culture of learning. We're very respectful of each other. And we ask a lot of questions, but we joke that we don't make mistakes. We make learning opportunities. Because if more of us looked at life that way, that everything is a learning opportunity and another skill or another tool to add to our work box, man, wouldn't that be awesome? So anyway, that's my story about joining. And now we would love to answer any questions that anyone has about anything, really.
You had mentioned that you train your reviewers in 4 items. You said implicit bias, equity, and what were the other items? And how do you train them?
Good question. The other were trust-based philanthropy and consensus building. So as far as, let's see, the first one was implicit bias. So we actually worked with a training organization that teaches about implicit bias and microaggressions. And they did a training video for us that looked specifically at our grant making process and let everybody know this is where bias could come in. Like, first of all, take your time, read things. Like if you see spelling errors in the application and you say they're not going to get our money, stop. What does that have to do with the work that they're doing? So there's a lot of different places where bias can come in. And so we ask our members, call yourself out about that and share with the people on your team. I'm feeling a bias against or for this group for this reason, and I need some help because I don't know if it's fair. And so we work together to make sure we're talking about those things. Trust-based philanthropy we learned about from the Trust-Based Philanthropy Project, which is an organization that's been working for years to teach funders to recognize that when they say, here, you can have $1,000, but this is what we want you to spend it on, and we need a report tomorrow about how you spent our $1,000, that is not an effective way to give money. So they teach you about multi-year funding. They teach about this unrestricted giving like we do, where we say, we trust you that you know how to spend it and you know what you need. We have a few little criteria, but for the most part, they can spend it however they need to. I'd like to take just a second to give you an example of that.
Please do.
So there was one year where Constructing Hope got a nice big grant from us. And then when they came back to share with us how they had spent it, they said, you know what, we were experiencing so much turnover in our organization that we used it to increase the hourly wage of our staff and to provide them with health insurance. And the turnover stopped. And that means we can serve more people because we're not training people all the time. I don't know if they had asked for that originally. Like if we were a funder that makes you say exactly what you're going to do and all that, if that would have gotten funded, but they knew that that's what they needed. And we were thrilled that they did that and it had such a positive impact on the work they were doing. Consensus building is the way that we do it. It's pretty simple. There's an overarching message, which is we strive for consensus, but majority rules. So if we have 10 women on a grant review team and 9 of them are sure that they think this one should be number 1 and somebody else says, no, I don't agree. They beat her down. No, just kidding. Everybody knows that it's going to move forward, but they do take the time to ask what are we missing, or what do you think that we're missing, and give that person the opportunity to be heard.
Your hair even.
And equity, yes. You know, I'm sure all of you know what equity is, and there was such a long time there where we were striving for equality, and now we just assumed that people don't know what equity means, and we learn together. Every year we're reminded of the difference between equality and equity, and that giving everybody the same thing doesn't mean the best outcome. There are people that have been discriminated against or underserved for years, and they simply need more to be able to get a level playing field. So we teach about that as well. And it's in, if you meant like the mechanics of it, we do some that's video, and then we do some that's in person.
And I would just add that it isn't only the grant making team members that get that training.
Right.
Because I myself, and I've been on the membership side of things. I haven't done the grant making, little exception there, but because those topics are of interest to all of the girlfriends, we've had many learning opportunities to cover those.
That's true.
And that's a real wonderful benefit of being a girlfriend, that the chance to learn about those different things.
Thanks for the question.
About what you're doing and talking about. One question that I think, I think people here think about, and I imagine you do too, but you have a particular approach doing sort of private communal philanthropy. How do you think about that versus advocacy for policy changes? There's sort of we could say in the US, a little bit more of a slant towards private giving than government services relative to maybe certain other developed countries. And it's kind of an interesting quandary of how to assess the relative value of it. So I'm just curious if that's something you guys think about, and how you relate to that question. Does that make sense?
Take that?
Sure.
Yes, we've actually learned a lot about social change, and it can't happen without advocacy. So we don't fund advocacy per se because we can't as a 501c3, but we do everything we can to support advocacy. And like you may know, Planned Parenthood has a 501c3, and then they have an advocacy branch. So we make our members aware of that. And we also talk about how it can't change without policy change. For instance, you hear teach a man to fish. Well, I think that it goes like, let's see, feed it. Correct me if I don't know if I have this right, but it's like feed a man and he eats for a day, teach him to fish and he can eat for the rest of his life, help him get rights to the fishing thing, and he can help other people too, or something. I'm not very good at remembering those kind of things, but it really does make all the difference if you have to have that policy change as well. And sometimes, as the example of Path Home, or previously known as Portland Homeless Family Solutions, shows, by giving money to a nonprofit, they can actually get the data they need to make the policy changes. So that's huge if we see an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I would just add that it really is the nonprofits that have the data and the experience and the specifics about policy impacts and what policies could make for a better result. And, the Oregon legislature in particular is not very well funded. And so they don't have research personnel to go and look into these issues for policy. So actually, advocacy is extremely important, and we're very interested in it. And when we have forums, we do want to know what policies could be changed. Mm-hmm. It's just that 99 Girlfriends as an organization won't fund that.
And we actually have a big discovery forum coming up for our members and people interested in joining. That's about the housing shortage and its impact on homelessness, and like how much of that is policy and how much of that can be changed and how much of it really just needs money. So we learn about it even if we aren't necessarily funding directly. Thank you for your question.
Thank you all for coming, and I've appreciated your talk. Mine kind of spins on policy as well. especially with all of the policies that are not particularly wanting to happen with the current administration, with equity and inclusion. Do y'all expect to see an increase in asks from the people that y'all are giving to? Do you expect to see an increase in that probably here in the next 4 years? And do y'all expect to ramp up your membership and your possibilities for contribution?
Thank you. Lori is our membership chair. I'll let her talk to that in just a second, but I would say yes, the answer is we do expect to see more. Where the Nonprofit Association of Oregon, a lot of funders are putting more money. They're like doubling their funding, and they're creating, the NAO is creating a one-stop shop where people can go in and say, I'm impacted by not getting federal money and I need more local money. And they're looking at making that simpler for people to find out. We're always trying to grow our membership so that we can make a bigger impact. It'll be interesting to see if people like don't join because they feel like they need to do something more directly, or maybe they're personally impacted. Maybe someone in their family's been fired or something. We never really know. We ask our members to pledge or to let us know if they're going to rejoin, but we never really know until April 30th how many members we're going to have, do we?
No, we don't really know, but we do track progress and compare it to the prior year. And what we're seeing is we have had more people joining at this point in time than we did last year. It's hard to know which factors play into that. I think the current direction of not supporting minority groups and others, I think there's no escaping it. It's going to be a terrible, terrible impact. And it's just wrong and it's heartbreaking. And, I think on a national level, there's nothing that most of us can really do about it. So I do think in some ways that will inspire people to do something locally so they feel like they could at least do what they can and help where they can. That's just my personal feeling about what's going on, and kind of turning inward a little bit about, what we can do in the community.
I'd like to add to that I'm seeing everybody who's been doing work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion field, or who that's an important piece of their DNA, whether it's the Philanos Women's Group abroad or in Portland, everybody is restating that this is very important to what they do, and they're not going to stop doing it. And so that's been really reassuring.
Yeah.
Of course, federal money is the big money. None of us can do at the state level what the feds do. So we have to continue fighting in the courts.
Yeah, I think it's the money piece, and I think it's also the policy piece, the changes that are shutting people out, wiping them off the list of, important considerations. I think it's just very unfortunate. And like I said, I think it's heartbreaking.
And every year we get more applications than we got the year before. So we're pretty confident we'll get more applications this year too.
And we are reaching out to our partners to see if there's anything that we can do. We have liaisons that are assigned. So to be that person that keeps in touch if there's anything that's happening. And I would think there'll be more changes maybe this year because of that, to fund some of the basic things just to keep viable for a little while. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things happening. It's not easy to predict. Some of it's bad. I think a lot of people's personal responses will be good. That's what we're hoping.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
First of all, thanks so much for your presentation and the demonstration that a couple of people in a kitchen can turn out to make a big difference. My question is, there's a conviction that men would go about this differently, which is why this is an organization of women. What do you think those differences might be?
I'll take a look.
Yeah, I just say, Hank, I really like your shirt. My husband's a big fly fisherman. I need to see what comes after Hank owns 7 fly rods.
Hank owns 7. It's a math problem.
Oh, okay.
Hank owns 7 fly rods. He gets 2 more. What does Hank have? The answer is happiness. Hank has happiness.
I love that. I'll have to get that for my husband, whose name is not Hank, but that would make it even funnier.
Start calling him Hank.
You can have it personalized.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Lori?
That's great. There is something called the women effect. And that is that when women give, the way they do it and who gets the money matters. Women are more likely to give money based on who gets it. Men are more likely to give money based on who asks them to give. Men are more likely to spend money on a building with their name on it. Women are more likely to give to a community with anonymity. So, and this kind of the parable thing about, give a man a fish, and so on. The way I heard it was you give a woman a fish and she eats. Teach her how to fish. She can eat for a lifetime. You give her responsibility for the pond. Not only does she feed the community, environmentally, they keep it clean and for, sustainable for the future. So women just really and truly do have a different perspective on things. It's much more focused on their family and the community. They're more generous at the smaller level. And so I think, there's been a lot of global examples of women getting microloans, and if you give it to the man, it's gambled away. He spends it on alcohol, and this is general and it's very negative and it's not accurate 100%, 90% probably, but but you give a woman, you give her the same small amount of money and she saves some, she shares some, she invests it, and so it's just that the impact is much more significant and long-lasting.
And we are not anti-men in our organization, just to be super clear.
Thank you. Good question.
Thank you very much for an inspiring presentation. My question is, would you mind discussing how your fellows program has benefited women 35 and younger in other walks of life? And I have one clarification in case I missed it. Could you also tell us if transgender women can be girlfriends? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Absolutely, transgender women can join. Anyone who aligns with womanhood or would be inspired to be with a group of women is welcome with us. We've had several iterations of our language around that, and we've learned that right now what we're using is the most welcoming, but we may learn that we need to change that again. And thank you for asking about the Fellows Program. We're really, really proud of the Fellows Program. So we figured out very early on that our group skewed older, and we want diversity in our group. So we tried to figure out, how can we bring in some younger women? How can we attract that group? What are we lacking? And so we looked at what some other groups had done, and Deborah, one of the first two women in the Deborah from Austin, one of the women in the kitchen, she had been a college professor. So she said, why don't we put together a fellows program where if young women come and they join us for 3 years, they'll get leadership development, they'll get all kinds of skill building, they'll get a mentor, and they don't have to pay for their membership. And in return, they give to 99 girlfriends in some way that they get to elect what that might be. And maybe they're on a team or a committee, or maybe they are our social media manager or something. And so over the years, we've had usually just a few women a year that elect to do that. It's now morphed a little bit differently. It's no longer a 3-year commitment. Now you join at whatever level you can afford. And if you want to opt into that program, you can. And you get a mentor, you get leadership development opportunities. And one of the wonderful things that's come of it is the women that have joined that way and have gotten engaged tend to stay. Because when you're engaged and you actually participate, you tend to have a better experience and you stay. So we have some women that graduated from that program and are still members now 3 years later. We have some that have had babies and moved on because they didn't have the capacity for it as well. And that's fantastic. They've participated and they're always girlfriends to us. It's also helped to diversify our membership because the women looking for those things don't necessarily come to us first and say, wow, there's a lot of old ladies here. They see what the program is offering and they opt in. So it's a very diverse group of younger women, and it's really made us better. and we actually get to talk at conferences, the Conference of Women's Collective Giving, about our program, because others have modeled their fellows program after it, because it is such a positive, has made such a positive impact on our circle.
Wonderful.
We would still like to have more younger women in our organization. I mean, it's still not it's not really a critical mass, I feel.
Right.
By having the fellows group, we're able to bring them together and make them feel like they are part of a cohort and not just like a little individual in a sea of gray hair. But yeah, I think we would like to do more. I personally, as the co-chair of the membership committee, I have recruited younger women to be my co-chairs because I want them to have that experience and that visibility. It's good for them. It's good for the younger women that are there to see that, in this leadership role. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's just still a work in progress, but it's important to us. We value that. We want those younger women in the pipeline, and we want them to be able to, we want them to get mentored and to find a social group that's got the same values, and then to network in the field, especially if they're in the nonprofit field. It's an amazing hub for all kinds of people and expertise. So we welcome them. If you know of any, give them the card.
Thanks for the question, Anon. I have a fun fact about that too. When we were figuring out those different levels to bring people in, we thought this $300 level would really make it more accessible for young women to participate. And we were really excited that we would get a lot more women that were joining at that level, that were, maybe in their 30s. And we got this big uptick in women in their 80s. And we were like, wait a second, we didn't think about this. Women in their 80s tend to be on a fixed income. They want to give. They want to be part of something just as much as any other age does. And so we have this wonderful new group of women in their 80s that are girlfriends, and they come to our events and they participate, and it's just been a wonderful surprise.
Yeah. And there was I think a racial piece to that question too. Diversity, I guess. So it isn't just, I would just say
it's age and race diversity that we've achieved through it.
Yes, right.
I heard the word magic when you were starting your talk, and of course, we're very scientific here. We know there's no such thing as magic. So I was wondering what you're talking about. And I see you have a very effective organization, and I guess I'm led to conclude that it's either because you're all women or because none of you are men. But in the age of the great organizations, there are many fraternal organizations in the United States, they all have a women's auxiliary. Why don't you get a men's auxiliary?
Oh, there you go.
It would be good for us to be in an auxiliary once as men.
Hey. Yeah.
Okay. Have you considered that model?
We actually have at times about how do we welcome men to participate, and like sometimes they'll come to our awards celebration with their wives because it's their money too that's going into the pot. But we've always ended up just coming back to
that kept families together because
the men tried to get rid of their wife and get another wife. They'd still see the old wife at the meetings, and that would be very bad.
Well, we would have to change our name, 99 Girlfriends.
So I have to tell you, I was the one who said the word magic, and I actually thought about it because I know about your scientific, but really anything that's done collectively, it really is magic. What a bigger impact it can make. Just think if all of you in this room gave $1,000 to a nonprofit, any nonprofit, and they're all different, that is just amazing and so generous and wonderful. But if everybody in this room gave $1,000 to the same nonprofit, some magic happens there because they have this bigger pool of money that they can do something with that they may have been waiting for. They may have some dream project that's ready to go, but they just need, that, I don't know how many people are in the room here, maybe 40, that $40,000 to get it to happen. And there it is.
So maybe it feels magical. It might not be proved to be magic, but it feels magical, which is good enough.
Says the electrical and hydro, and she, what are you like, three engineers?
I don't know.
Anyway, she's also a scientist.
So just to give me an idea of how many people, how many organizations might apply in a year, just for the past 2 or 3 years, what is the number of applicants you get by, what is your deadline, April 15 or something?
So our deadline for a of interest is in early May. The April 30th is joining, but last year we had 133 applications. And we actually tried to reduce the number of applications by communicating really clearly and directly about what we fund and what we don't fund, because we don't want to waste anybody's time. So that 133 was actually a little bit lower number. And we were, even though I said we get more every year, we went from 5 groups funding to 4. So technically, anyway, so 80 of the 133 got invited to submit an application.
Wow.
Which is pretty darn good.
Yeah, because it is a 2-step process where before they submit a full-blown application, they're invited to submit a letter of interest, and those get screened so that with a little bit of effort, they can find out whether they're likely and it's worthwhile to put more effort into it.
And then even our application isn't as complicated or long as it used to be for the same reason. We don't need 12 pages to know what you do and how you're doing it. And if it's something that we want to fund, we just need you to answer some specific questions. Certain things like, if you're serving the homeless, are the people on your board, do they have any experience with homelessness? Like, what is their experience and how are you including the homeless in the work that you're doing so that you're making sure to hear from the people that you're trying to help? Things like that. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
I'm just curious, it's really big projects though, like you're giving $100,000, if $5,000 would help, those aren't people that should apply to your
when you're
organization.
applying to get a big award. And you may get it or you may not. We don't have different levels that you apply for. We've had people say, we just want to apply for the $10,000 one. And we say, no, you apply for the big money and you may get the $10,000 one.
Okay.
And they have to have the capacity to spend it over 2 years.
Over 2 years. And so it's for a big award. It's not the little, it's so they've got to have some feet. I mean, they've got to have some structure.
They do. We have some requirements, like they have to have been a nonprofit for 3 years in the area. The money has to stay for the most part in Oregon, Southwest Washington, because we fund where we live. Right. And they have to have a budget of at least $100,000, I think is what it is now. Okay. So, but they don't have to spend all of it right away, and they don't even have to have a project. They can say, we're going to hire a development director for the next 2 years so we can raise money, so we can get a bigger space, so we can build out our staff or whatever. And they can decide how they're going to do that. Or it may be that they're going to put something, they don't even have to tell us in their application how they're going to use it. They have to tell us about the work that they're doing, the problem they're trying to solve, and how they're going about doing that.
Okay, it's wonderful. Thank you for that clarification.
Great question.
Actually, I have 2 questions, and they're both related to the issue of homelessness. You gave an example early on where you found the model of keeping people from becoming homeless is far more productive and less expensive than helping them get off the street. There is an organization, Northwest Housing Alternatives, just that kind of model. I'm wondering if you work with other nonprofits. In other words, would you give them money rather than? It always bothers me that there are multiple nonprofits who are trying to accomplish the same goal, and I'm wondering, in your work, is there any way to help them collaborate? Is there any usefulness in helping them collaborate with one another? Have you ever even heard of Northwest Housing Alternative? Because they're a very powerful housing organization, nonprofit, right here. They work in 17 different counties in Oregon. So
I haven't heard of them personally, but people are always still finding out about us. I would encourage you to tell them about us because they may.
Can they?
Yes, anybody can go to our website and see would I qualify, and we want them to know about us. We want to know about great projects that are happening for sure. We did used to do more in the area of trying, like, who else is doing work in the area that you're working, and have you worked with them and all of that? But that was kind of a rabbit hole for us, and we recognized that's not really our place. So we don't do so much of that. But we do learn from some of the organizations that we're working with that there are certain groups that are helping them come to the table and work together. And unfortunately, with what's going on in Washington, some of these organizations are going to go away as well. So there'll be a thinning of nonprofits.
In yesterday's Oregonian, the front page, county says likely reductions in homelessness services on the way. And the Multnomah County chair said that they're projecting a $104 million gap in the cost of continuing current homelessness services. That's just because that is a short-term gap. And I know this speaks to some of the questions that you've talked about before. You can't get into the advocacy or policy issue, but it occurred to me, I'll bet that if Multnomah County asked the citizens to each give $10 each or something like that, they could figure out a way to come up with 100. And I mean, is anything like that possible? Is that anything that your organization? I know you say they would have to issue an application for it. Do you have any brainstorming thoughts about how the citizens or your organization could help with this issue?
Well, a lot of them that are girlfriends are also people who, like, if there's a request for somebody to call their senator or whatever, those are the same women that are calling their senators and doing all of that. I wish we could brainstorm here today and have an answer for you about how we can solve this crisis. And it is a crisis. I know that we're looking at, it's our 10th anniversary. Is there a way that we can do something extra for our 10th anniversary? And we're going to look at April 30th and see what's the biggest thing going on that we may be able to help with. But this isn't really an answer to your question, but I would like to bring it up. And that is, our focus area for housing is housing and home stability. So what we do is we fund organizations that are working in the homelessness arena, but also organizations that are working in an arena that keep people from being homeless. For instance, CARES Northwest does child abuse prevention. There's data to prove that if child abuse happens in a family, the family breaks up and more homelessness occurs because they're not a strong unit anymore. So if CARES Northwest and other organizations like them can get in there and help stabilize the family, they don't end up homeless. So we're really focused on things like that as well. I would say we're skewed a little bit towards prevention because the cleanup is such a big problem and we have such little money to contribute to that. And also Rosehaven, you're probably familiar with Rosehaven. That's one of our organizations. They help women experiencing homelessness. They have a great day shelter here in Northwest. There are a lot of organizations that do home stability type work to really try to keep families together or keep people in housing. That
a government organization could request financial support from,
well, we only give to profits. So
yeah,
county would not.
Somebody could do a GoFundMe. And
that's what I was going to say. Crowdfunding.
Yeah, it is a way of doing collective giving, and then also the Metro housing
to fund a portion of that 108.
I think the government would do it. Would be a bond measure. Well, I think that's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
We'll have to
bad.
follow that story with you. I wish we had an answer to that.
I'd like to just
Sure.
put in one final plug, and that is if you're involved in any other organization and that you would like us to come and speak to another group, we would love to hear from you about that.